Hey everyone, ready to dive into some history?
Always.
You asked for it, a deep dive on the history of Los Angeles.
A city with quite the story.
More than just movies and beaches, that's for sure.
Layers upon layers. That's what we're going to uncover today.
Using the Wikipedia article, History of Los Angeles, it's a long one.
Plenty to unpack there. And some surprises along the way, guarantee it.
Oh, I bet. So, before we even get to the LA we think we know,
We need to rewind the clock. Way
before Hollywood, before even the Spanish settlers,
The LA Basin belonged to the Tongva people, also known as the Gabrielino.
LA before it was LA.
Imagine a time when the LA River flowed freely, sustaining the Tongva and their village of Yanga.
Their main hub, right. Not just scattered tribes, but a thriving community.
Exactly. And not just surviving, but thriving. They were skilled craftspeople and traders.
I read about their trading network. It stretched all the way to the Colorado River.
That's right. Imagine them navigating those waters, trading goods and stories along the California coast.
It's a side of LA we rarely picture.
It challenges the typical narrative, doesn't it?
Yeah,
But those narratives are often disrupted when you dig deeper.
and that's what we're here to do. But eventually, the Spanish settlers did arrive in 1781, aiming for that classic Pueblo setup.
Orderly, grid-like.
Everything in its place. Little did they know, LA had other plans.
The irony is palpable, isn't it? Their vision of a contained, planned city.
Versus the sprawling LA we know and, well, sometimes love to hate today.
But that founding in 1781, the establishment of El Pueblo de Los Angeles.
It's a turning point, even if it wasn't what they'd envisioned.
And here's a twist for you. Those founding families weren't all straight from Spain, you know.
Really? I always assumed.
Many were of African or Native American descent.
Wow. Challenging those assumptions right off the bat.
LA has always been a melting pot, from day one.
But even with the best intentions, those early days were rough, huh?
Starting with the LA River itself. A lifeline? Yes, but also unpredictable.
Prone to flooding, wasn't it?
So much so, they had to relocate the LA Plaza. Not once, but twice. Imagine the chaos.
Those settlers had their work cut out for them, trying to tame this wild land.
Cattle ranching took hold. Hides and tallow became their bread and butter, so to speak.
And get this, they even had vineyards thriving. Early LA, the wine country. Who knew?
It's a reminder that LA has always been in flux, adapting, reinventing itself.
And speaking of reinvention, things got really interesting when Mexico gained independence from Spain in 1821.
Ah, yes. California was suddenly open to new possibilities, new tensions.
And a whole new set of rules.
Exactly. The floodgates opened, foreigners poured in, drawn by the promise of this new land.
And then there's the secularization of the missions.
A seismic shift. Mission lands, once controlled by the church, were up for grabs.
And I'm guessing figures like Pio Pico, the California statesman, saw their opportunity.
Pico was a shrewd operator, that's for sure. He amassed quite a bit of land and influence during this time.
But for the Tongva, this must have been another blow.
Tragically, yes. Further marginalization as others prospered from the changing tides.
And then, of course, the arrival of U.S. interests loomed large.
A shadow falling over California, setting the stage for conflict.
It's like all these forces colliding, a powder keg waiting to explode.
And explode it did with the outbreak of the Mexican-American War in 1846.
And L.A. was right in the thick of it.
Commodore Stockton, leading the U.S. forces, he took Los Angeles.
But the Californios, they didn't give up easily.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Led by General Andres Pico, they actually drove the Americans out.
Really? I never learned about that.
It was short-lived, but a testament to their courage fighting for their home against the odds.
A forgotten act of resistance.
It's important to remember these moments, even in defeat. Ultimately, the Treaty of Cahuenga brought an end to the fighting.
And General Pico, he negotiated those terms, right?
He did. Recognizing the inevitable, he secured relatively peaceful terms. A testament to his leadership, I'd say, ensuring a smoother transition.
Smoother, perhaps, but not without its own set of complexities.
Oh, absolutely. 1848, California enters the American era, a time of great promise, but also great peril, especially for those who were already here.
And that's where we'll pick up next time, right?
Right. The gold rush, land disputes, the changing face of Los Angeles. It's a story you won't want to miss.
Promise and peril, that's a good way to put it. 1848, California is officially part of the U.S., and the gold rush is in full swing up north.
And even though it was hundreds of miles away, the impact of the gold rush was felt down here in LA too.
Right, like a ripple effect, drawing people looking for Fortune, adventure, a fresh start.
Exactly. But for many of those who are already here, those who called California home long before the gold rush, it was a time of tremendous upheaval.
Especially with how land ownership worked. You mentioned earlier U.S. law had a different view.
Night and day, really. Under Mexican rule, land grants were often vast, communal. Suddenly, those claims were being challenged, scrutinized under this new system.
So even if you had documents, your claim to land wasn't so secure anymore.
It threw everything into question. Imagine the uncertainty, the legal battles, the families who lost their land, their livelihoods. And for the Tongva, it was another layer of injustice on top of so much hardship.
Pushed further to the margins, as so often happens in these situations.
It's a tragic pattern, isn't it? But even with these growing pains, this underlying tension, LA kept growing, striving, reaching for something grander.
The ambition was relentless. Downtown expanding, those iconic streetcars clanging down the streets. Talk about a city on the move.
It was a time of rapid transformation. The rivalry with San Francisco was heating up, each city vying for dominance. And then there's the story of William Mulholland and the LA Aqueduct.
Ah, yes, the quest for water. A story that's as much about ingenuity as it is about, well, some might say ruthlessness.
The thirst for water shaped so much of LA's growth, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And they went to incredible lengths to get it, importing water from hundreds of miles away, literally reshaping the landscape.
The Owens Valley, once fertile and thriving, was left high and dry to quench LA's thirst. It was an engineering marvel, but a cautionary tale all in one.
A reminder that progress often comes at a cost, and sometimes that cost falls on those who have the least power.
Exactly. And as LA entered the 20th century, this tension between ambition and consequence, between progress and its price tag, would continue to play out in dramatic ways.
From the glitz and glamour of Hollywood to the upheaval of social movements, it's like LA was constantly reinventing itself, but also wrestling with its own shadow.
A city of contradictions, wouldn't you say?
Mhm.
And those contradictions would only become more pronounced as the 20th century unfolded. LA in the 21st century. Well, it's a city of stark contrasts, that's for sure.
Yeah, you've got these incredible heights of wealth and innovation.
And yet those shadows we talk about, they're still there. Poverty, inequality, they haven't gone away.
So it's like all those tensions, those contradictions we've been tracing throughout LA's history, they're still playing out today.
They are, just on a larger, more complex scale.
Look at downtown, you've got this revitalization, new businesses, high-rises.
But then you see the flip side.
Yeah.
The rising rents, the displacement, the question of who really benefits from all this progress.
Yeah, it's like two different cities existing side by side. And it's not just downtown, right?
Right, this pattern echoes throughout LA. Silicon Beach, for example, a hub of tech and entrepreneurship, but just a stone's throw away.
You have communities struggling with poverty, lack of opportunity.
It highlights that ongoing challenge for LA, how to create a city that works for everyone, not just a select few.
And then there's the environment. We
Right.
talked about the LA River, the aqueduct, this constant quest for water.
Water is still the defining issue for LA,
Hmm.
especially as we face the realities of climate change.
Right, those imported sources, they're not as reliable as they used to be.
So the city is having to confront those past choices, those trade-offs made in the name of growth.
It's like they're trying to outrun their own environmental legacy in a way, always innovating, adapting.
There's a certain irony to it, isn't there?
Yeah.
But also a sense of hope. LA is investing in water conservation, recycling, even looking at ways to restore the LA River itself.
Trying to undo some of those past mistakes, find a more sustainable path forward.
It's a huge undertaking, but essential for the future of the city. And it's not just about water. It's about creating a better quality of life for everyone.
Affordable housing, access to health care, addressing those systemic inequalities, it's a tall order.
It is, but I believe LA has the potential, the drive, the diversity of voices to make it happen.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we?
From the Tongva people to the Spanish settlers, from the gold rush to Hollywood, from those ambitious infrastructure projects to those ongoing social movements, it's quite a journey.
And through it all, this city, it just keeps evolving, redefining itself.
That's the spirit of LA, isn't it? That constant push and pull, that striving for something better, even in the face of challenges.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into LA's past, I think it's important to remember those whose stories are often overlooked.
The Tongvas, their connection to this land, it's woven into the very fabric of the city, even if we don't always see it.
Their story reminds us that LA's history runs deeper than we might realize.
And it's a story that's still being written, Every day, new arrivals add their own chapter to this ever-evolving narrative.
So as you engage with LA, whether you call it home or you're just passing through, remember to look beyond the surface.
Ask questions, challenge those easy narratives, and most importantly, add your own voice to the ongoing story of Los Angeles.
Beautifully said. And that's a wrap on this deep dive into the history of Los Angeles. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.
Thank you for listening. If you love history, don't forget to subscribe to History with Bree and Peter. Join us for more fascinating stories from the past. Hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode.